Hi, today we're going to look at depth of field at different apertures, and we're going to move the focal plane from the minimum focusing distance to infinity and back and just play around with that. So the lens I'm using is a 50mm f1.0 L lens mounted on a Canon 5D Mark III. Yes, this is the Legacy 50mm f1.0 L lens. Canon introduced this lens in 1989 and discontinued it in 2000. It was replaced in 2006 by the 50mm f1.2 L lens. So that lens is slower, so I'm going to use the original f1.0 L lens for depth of field demonstration here today. So I'm in manual mode. The ISO is set to the maximum, 25,600, 1/30th of a second. The first thing I'm going to do is go to my smallest aperture, so that's f16 on this lens, and we can get the maximum depth of field. Okay, and yeah, so it's right now it's underexposed by one stop, but there's nothing I can do about that. My ISO is already at the maximum. The shutter is as slow as possible for recording video. Yeah, so just bear with me. So let's go to the minimum focusing distance. So that's 60 centimeters, which is 2 feet, and we'll move the focus distance to infinity slowly. So this is infinity, and let's go back down to the minimum focusing distance and back up to infinity. So I moved this quite fast, and let's go back down because there's not much change, so I don't want to take up too much time. Okay, let's go to something more reasonable, 90 centimeters. And let's go to a more appropriate aperture. So let's go to 5.6, which is the peak sharpness of this lens, and we'll change the ISO and we can put it on auto. Oops. 4.6. So ISO 100 is just completely black. That's to be expected, and if we keep going, we can go to auto. Alright. So now we're at auto ISO. Yep. And we'll repeat this little experiment at f5.6. So go to the minimum focusing distance, and we'll go slowly head towards infinity. Okay, we're at infinity. Let's go back down. Let's do that one more time. So we're slowly increasing, so now 70 centimeters, 80, 90, 1 meter, 1.2, 1.5, 2, 3, 5, 10, and infinity. And let's go back down to 90 centimeters. Let's open up the aperture. Let's go to f2.8. So this is the aperture for the fastest zoom available from Canon. So the 24 to 70 f2.8. Let's go to the minimum focusing distance and we'll repeat. So let's see if there's a change here. So I'll slowly move my focus distance. So now we're at 90 centimeters, 1 meter, 1.2, 1.5, 2, 3 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters, and infinity. And let's go back down slowly. Let's just repeat this one more time. So going back up. "80 centimeters, 1 meter, and we're slowly going up. And back down to 90. let's keep opening up the aperture. Let's go to 1.4. So if you're with Canon or Nikon, the fastest 50 that you probably would get is the f1.4 lens. There is a 1.2 available from Canon, but that's like 3-4 times the price. So we'll slowly go to infinity. And I don't think there is much difference between 1.4 and 1.2 in terms of depth of field, at least. And back down. $80 centimeters, 70, and 60. And let's go back up one more time, slowly. $80, 90, 1 meter, 1.2, 1.5, 2 meters, 3, 5, 10, and infinity. And back down. Alright, so this is all what you've been waiting for. To open it up to f1.0, let's do that. 1.2, 1.1, 1. Minimum focusing distance, 60 centimeters. Alright, let's go. So this is the minimum depth of field you can achieve on any lens with autofocus. So yeah, Leica does have a f0.95, but that's manual focus. Canon also has a f0.95, but that's for FD mount, not the EF mount. So now we're at infinity and we'll slowly head our way back to the minimum focusing distance. In terms of sharpness, this lens doesn't perform that bad compared to the 50mm f1.2L lens that I have. The f1.2L is slightly sharper. At least, well, it dominates in the corners, but yeah, this lens, the 50f1.0 is not too bad. One more time, go back up. Alright, so we can compare the different depth of fields that we can see. So right now we're at f1.0. I can slowly stop down and we can see the depth of field slowly increase. So now we're at 1.0. Now we're at 1.1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, 2, 2.2, 2.5, 2.8, 3.2, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.6, 6.3, 7.1, f8, f9, f10, f11, and now we're at our exposure is at its peak, so I need to boost my ISO before we go to f16, otherwise it will get a bit too dark. Okay, so boosted the ISO. And let's go to f16. So f13, f14, f16. I think I'll conclude by showing you the different exposure levels if we fix the ISO and shutter speed and just change the aperture. So right now we are one stop underexposed at f16. So if I go to f14, f13, f11, now the exposure is correct. Keep going, keep opening up, f10, f9, f8. We are one stop overexposed now. I can keep opening. f7.1, 6.3, 5.6, f5, 4.5, f4. Now it's really starting to get really overexposed. Let's keep going. 3.5, 3.2, f2.8, f2.5, f2.2, f2, f1.8, f1.6, f1.4. And most lenses, they can only get to this stage, but we can keep going. We can do f1.2, 1.1, and finally f1. Everything is now completely white. And I think this is a good conclusion. Thank you for watching. Bye.